You ever wonder how a show about the 5 most selfish, depraved, sociopathic scumbags to ever walk the earth managed to become the longest-running live-action comedy in American television history? This is a show that has 0 redeeming characters, makes fun of everything, and is proud of it? Alright, listen up, you jabronis.
You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome!
Today we're gonna give this goddamn masterpiece the respect it deserves. I'm gonna rank every season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia from the absolute worst to the 5-star best.
Because of the implication.
Howdy, and thanks for clicking on this video to see what this jackass has to say. I appreciate you. For those of you who are new here, prepare yourselves. For those of you who've been here before, well, sorry. This is going to be a long one because we're discussing all 17 seasons of glorious, unadulterated chaos. So pop on those kitten mittens, crack open a can of Wolf Cola, and get ready to swallow a healthy dose of fight milk because you're going to need the energy to get through this beast. Maybe pop in an Imodium as a precautionary measure. So today I'm doing a deep dive into the filth. Let's talk about how 3 broke actors and a camcorder created a comedy legend. We're going to perform an ocular pat down on each member of the gang to figure out what makes these horrible, horrible people so damn likable. And most importantly, we'll definitively rank every single season and act that I'm sure is going to start a war in the comments, but either way, let's do this.
This is classic Tammy.
How this dumpster fire got started. Before we get into the good stuff, before I start that countdown, let's talk about how this whole thing even got started. It's a story that's almost as weird as the show itself. So back in the early 2000s, 3 out-of-work actors, Rob McElhenney, Glenn Howerton, and Charlie Day, were getting fed up with the grind. So Rob came up with an idea, a short film about a guy going to his friend's house to get sugar, but it turns out he's got cancer and just wants to guilt his friends. Sounds pretty cheery, right? Well, they shot a pilot in their own apartments on a crappy camcorder for about $200. The original title was It's Always Sunny on TV. It's basically what we've come to know as the episode Charlie Has Cancer. They then pitched it to FX, who saw the raw, twisted genius in it and gave them a shot. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, it's officially the longest running live-action sitcom in American TV history. It really is a true Cinderella story if Cinderella was a glue-huffing illiterate and Prince Charming was a sociopath who kept a collection of skin luggage. So what do I think makes this show so damn good even after all these years? As many have said before, it's Seinfeld on crack. It follows the gang, 5 of the most narcissistic, selfish, and morally bankrupt people you'll ever meet, who run a failing dive bar called Patty's Pub in South Philadelphia. The gang, a quick ocular pat down. So first up, you have Dennis Reynolds. He's a walking, talking DSM-5 of personality disorders. Vain, manipulative, and a full-blown sociopath who sees women as conquests and people as tools. He's a 5-star man who believes his Ivy League education makes him a golden god, yet he spends his days scheming with morons. The depth of his character comes from the terrifying realization that he might not be faking it. He's genuinely empty inside, and his fragile ego is the only thing holding him together. Then there's his twin sister Deandra Sweet D Reynolds. Dee's the universe's punching bag. She's an aspiring actress with 0 talent and even lower self-esteem. Desperate for fame, but constantly shut down by the guys who just see her as a big dumb bird. Her narcissism's born from insecurity. She thinks she's better than everyone else because she has to. If she ever admitted she wasn't, her entire world would collapse. She's just as awful as the rest of them, but you almost feel bad for her. Almost. And you really can't talk about Sunny without Charlie Kelly, the heart and soul of the show's filth. He's the illiterate, cat food eating, glue huffing janitor of Patty's Pub. Charlie's a man-child who lives in squalor, suffers from bad news, and is obsessed with a woman who wants nothing to do with him, the waitress. They're actually married in real life, so it makes it that much more hilarious. But beneath the grime is a strange kind of innocence. He's a musical prodigy who wrote The Nightman Cometh, and he's fiercely loyal, to a fault. He's a genuine idiot, but he's an idiot with passion. Then there's Ronald Mac McDonald, the self-proclaimed sheriff of Patty. Max the bar's bouncer, obsessed with looking tough, bodybuilding, and of course his strict Catholic faith, which he ignores whenever it's inconvenient. His entire identity is a performance. And speaking of performance, the actor Rob McElhenney now officially goes by Rob Mac. I guess when you play a character this delusional for nearly 20 years, some of it's bound to rub off. Anyway, for years Mac struggled with his sexuality, burying it under layers of ridiculous macho posturing. His journey of self-acceptance, culminating in his iconic dance in season 13, is one of the most shockingly beautiful moments in the show's history. Hell, it's a great moment in television. He's still an asshole, but He's our asshole. And finally, the man who brought the chaos to a whole new level, Frank Reynolds, played by the legendary Danny DeVito, who joined in season 2 and saved the show from cancellation. Frank is Dennis and Dee's father figure and the gang's financier. He's a multimillionaire who abandoned his cushy life to live in filth with Charlie. He is pure, uncut id.
One of the things I like doing most is banging whores.
A depraved, gun-toting, gambling-addicted goblin of a man who has no shame and no limits. He's the monster the gang inspires to be, and he's glorious. He's not afraid to get real weird with it. He's the warthog. And speaking of appearances, I wouldn't be doing this video justice if I didn't talk about the actors. After all these years, it's not just the characters who've gotten weirder. The actors themselves are starting to look preserved. Dee, Dennis, and Mac in particular are rocking some seriously obvious plastic surgery. They're starting to look less like people and more like they're wearing skin suits of their former selves. And honestly, I think it adds a whole new layer of uncanny valley horror to the show, which, if we're being honest, is perfectly on brand. Why these assholes actually work. These characters are horrible, narcissistic scumbags, but the secret sauce is that the show never lets them win. Their schemes always blow up in their faces. We laugh at them, not with them. And through their insane, misinformed takes on everything from gun control to the housing crisis, the show becomes a twisted funhouse mirror of our own society. I look at it like Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner. We don't feel bad for the coyote when he gets crushed by a boulder because he brought it on himself. And you know he's gonna be fine the next episode. The gang absolutely operates on the same principle. And I think the writers have also mastered the art of making every character wrong about everything, but wrong in character-specific ways. Dennis is wrong because he's a narcissist. Dee is wrong because she's desperate. Charlie's wrong because he's Charlie. This consistency is what makes the show work, even when they're tackling serious subjects. Now, before we get too deep into the rankings, I really have to put an asterisk on my love for this show. Because as much as I adore its brilliance, honestly, it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite shows of all time. They pulled an absolute pussy move in 2020. Amidst all the cultural insanity of that year, the creators caved and pulled 5 classic episodes from streaming. I mean, it was episodes like D-Day and the Lethal Weapon sequels. And honestly, the truth is uglier than most people think. You can't buy these episodes on Amazon, you can't get them on Apple. They've been memory holed by the creators themselves. And for what? Because some people couldn't grasp the concept of satire? The entire joke of those episodes was to highlight the ignorance and stupidity of blackface. The gang were the punchline, not the heroes. For a show that built its legacy on being fearless, this act of self-censorship was a massive disappointment and a betrayal of everything that made the show great in the first place.
Disregard that, Frank. It's a bunch of liberal bullshit.
It's also a good reason to collect physical media. You can still watch those episodes on that. All right, enough foreplay. Let's get to the main event. I'm ranking all 17 seasons from worst to best. And just a reminder, even the worst season of Sunny is better than 90% of what's on TV. All right, coming in at number 17 is season 15. Look, making this season during the height of the global pandemic was a monumental task, no doubt, and for that, they get my respect. But the final product was... The highlight by far for me anyway was the Gang Buys a Roller Rink, a flashback episode that gave us some genuinely ridiculous fun and felt like a breath of fresh, non-quarantined air. And unfortunately, the rest of the season mostly falls flat on its face. The much-hyped trip to Ireland felt disjointed, and at times, the whole season sounded less like Always Sunny and more like a pharmaceutical ad, with its weirdly earnest tone. It was an ambitious swing, no doubt, but I thought it was mostly a miss. Alright, at number 16 is season 14. And just barely crawling out of last place is season 14. This season had some moments of absolute brilliance that remind you what this show is capable of. The Janitor Always Mops Twice, I thought, was a stunning black and white noir parody that is both visually inventive and pretty damn funny. And then D-Day is a chaotic masterpiece, giving Sweet Dee the power she always craved with disastrous results. Can't watch it though. But outside of those gems, this season's fairly forgettable. It felt like the writers had a couple of genius ideas and just filled the rest of the episodes with whatever they had laying around. And the season doesn't end with a bang, it mostly just ends on a thud, leaving you thinking more about the couple of great episodes than the season as a whole. And at number 15 is season 13. Season 13 was clearly a transitional season, dealing with Glenn Howerton's reduced involvement and trying to figure out what the show would be without Dennis for several episodes. While Dennis's temporary departure led to some interesting dynamics, the season just never quite found its footing. The Gang Does a Clip Show was clever meta commentary, but you could really feel the writers struggling to fill time. When your best episodes are literally made up of clips from older, better episodes, that's really not a great sign. And at number 14 comes Season 16. Season 16 kind of felt like a step in the right direction. It showed flashes of the old magic, but it also felt like a band getting back together after being apart for far too long. There were some solid episodes, but nothing that reached the heights of the show's golden era. It felt safe in a way that Always Sunny should never really feel. The gang trying to adapt to modern social media culture provided some laughs, but the execution lacked the sharp edge that made earlier seasons so memorable. Alright, at number 13 is Season 1. Here's the thing about Season 1. It's historically important and has some great moments, but it's clearly a show finding its voice. Without Frank, the dynamic feels a bit incomplete. The episodes are shorter, the production values are obviously low, and while the gang gets racist set the tone perfectly, the season as a whole feels like a proof of concept. Hell, FX wanted to pull it off the air after that first season. Charlie Wants an Abortion showed the potential, and underage drinking, a national concern, was legitimately great, but this is more important for what it would become than what it was. Alright, at number 12 is Season 17. Alright, so let's talk about this most recent season. After a few years that felt a bit off, Season 17 felt like the gang collectively said fuck it and decided to go back to the glory days. The tone, the atmosphere, it all felt like a massive step in the right direction. It was like they remembered that their primary job is to be 5 horrible people in a dingy bar, and you know what? They really leaned into that beautifully. Now, was it a perfect season? Hell no. It definitely had a few misses, and personally, this might just be me, I didn't care for the Abbott Elementary crossover. I haven't watched a single second of that show, so the whole thing just was kind of lost on me. But for the most part, I really enjoyed what Season 17 was bringing to the table. It wasn't quite peak Sunny, but it felt like the show we know and love again, and that's a damn good thing. Alright, at number 11 is Season 12. Season 12 is remembered primarily for Hero or Hate Crime, the episode where Mac finally comes out for real. That episode alone almost saves the season. It's a perfect blend of the show's trademark awful behavior and genuine character development. If we're being honest, Mac is the most densely complicated character in the entire series. But the rest of this season I thought was a bit hit or miss. The Gang 10's bar was a nice return to basics, but several episodes felt like they were treading water. Still, any season that features Mac's definitive coming out scene deserves some respect. At 10 comes Season 10. Season 10 was really solid but not spectacular by any means. By this point, the show had found its rhythm so completely that it could produce good episodes in its sleep. The Gang Misses the Boat was excellent character work showing what happens when the gang tries to evolve. And The Gang Goes on Family Fight was pure chaos. I think the season suffered a bit from feeling routine, but routine Sunny is way better than most shows. I think it just lacked the spark that made earlier seasons feel dangerous and unpredictable. At number 9 is Season 11. So I gotta give Season 11 credit for The Gang Goes to Hell, which was a 2-part finale that was genuinely ambitious. Trapping the gang in a sinking ship and forcing them to confront their mortality was pretty inspired, and Mac's temporary coming out was handled perfectly. Being frank, the entire episode from Frank's perspective was either brilliant or self-indulgent depending on your mood, but you have to admire the ambition. Also, Dennis and Mac Move to the Suburbs is an all-time classic. This season showed the writers were still willing to take really big swings, and for the most part, this season hits. At number 8 is Season 6. By Season 6, Danny DeVito had fully integrated into the group dynamic, and the results were consistently hilarious. Mac's mom burns her house down featured Josh Groban and was peak Sunny insanity. The gang gets a new member, cleverly played with the idea of adding someone normal to the group. I think this season hit a sweet spot where the characters were fully developed, but the situation still felt fresh. Frank's integration was complete, and every episode felt essential to the show's mythology. Coming in at number 7 is Season 2. The addition of Danny DeVito changed everything for the show. Suddenly, the show had the budget for bigger stunts and the star power to get attention. But more importantly, it had Frank Reynolds to bankroll the gang's increasingly expensive disasters. Charlie Goes America All Over Everybody's Ass showed how Frank could fund their delusions of grandeur, while the gang runs for office demonstrated the new dynamic perfectly. DeVito's commitment to the role was total from day one, and it saved the show from cancellation. Coming in at number 6 is Season 9, The Creative Renaissance. So season 9 was when the show proved it could still surprise us 8 seasons in. Flowers for Charlie, written by Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, was brilliant. The Gang Desperately Tries to Win an Award was brilliant meta commentary on the show's lack of Emmy recognition. While Mac Day finally had the characters explicitly acknowledge that Mac was gay. This season really felt like a creative rebirth. At number 5 is season 3. So I think season 3 was when Always Sunny figured out its perfect formula. The gang gets held hostage, introduced the McBoyles in all their incestuous glory. Sweet D's dating a retarded person gave us the immortal Dayman song and showed how the gang's delusions could really create accidental art. Every episode feels essential this season, and the show's willingness to tackle controversial subjects with complete irreverence was at its peak. The characters were fully formed, the situations were perfectly absurd, and the comedy was sharp as a tack. At number 4 is season 8. I think season 8 was just pure creative ambition, and it really paid off. The gang gets analyzed, put each other on a therapist's couch, and revealed the psychological depth beneath their awful behavior. Reynolds vs. Reynolds, the serial defense, was a brilliant courtroom episode that showcased the show's ability to work in any format. The Gang Dines Out was a masterclass in escalating tension and paranoia. While Charlie Rules America showed what happens when Charlie gets actual power. This season proved that the show could be experimental without losing its edge. At number 3 comes season 4. You know, while making this list, I think season 4 might actually be the most consistently excellent season of the show's run. Mac and Charlie Die was a 2-part masterpiece of escalating insanity. The gang solves the gas crisis, perfectly captured America's early 2000s energy anxieties through the gang's completely backward worldview. Who Pooped the Bed sounds juvenile, but was actually sophisticated comedy about reputation and paranoia. And every single episode was quotable, memorable, and perfectly executed. This was Always Sunny firing on all cylinders. And coming in at the number 2 spot is season 7. So season 7 found the perfect balance between character development and pure chaos. Frank Reynolds' Little Beauties was deeply uncomfortable and absolutely hilarious. The Gang Goes to the Jersey Shore was a perfect parody of reality TV culture, while Thunder Gun Express showed how the gang's terrible decisions could spiral into citywide chaos. Also, it's hard not to love Fat Mac. Charlie McDennis, The Game of Games, created the show's most enduring original concept, and the season finale 2-parter was ambitious storytelling that paid off perfectly. This season really showed the show's full maturity. And in the top spot at number 1 comes season 5. I think season 5 is Always Sunny perfection. It's the season I always go back to. Every single episode is a classic. The gang exploits the mortgage crisis, perfectly captured the 2008 financial meltdown through the gang's get-rich-quick schemes. The Dennis system gave us the most quotable episode in the show's history and revealed Dennis's sociopathic methods in full detail. Mac and Charlie White Trash brilliantly examined class anxiety, while The Waitress is Getting Married was Charlie Day's finest performance. I mean, Kitten Mittens alone should have won an Emmy for pure creative insanity. It also features my favorite episode of all time, but we'll get to that in a bit. But it's the gang wrestles for the troops that puts this season over the top. The introduction of the Maniac, R.I.P. Rowdy Roddy Piper, the patriotic themes, and the complete chaos of the wrestling match created one of television's greatest half hours. This season represents Always Sunny at its absolute peak. Every joke lands, every character moment works, and every episode feels absolutely essential. I think season 5 really proved that a show about terrible people could be profound, hilarious, and surprisingly moving all at once. It's comedy writing at its finest, and it's absolutely why Always Sunny deserves to be mentioned alongside the greatest sitcoms ever made. Now that the rankings are done and you made it this far, I know exactly what you're thinking. What are your personal bangers? The absolute Mount Rushmore of Sunny episodes.
Well, we're waiting.
Well, since you asked, here are my top 5 episodes of all time. This is just my list. Argue with your mother. At number 5, I have Sweet D's dating a retarded person. This episode gave us the birth of a musical legend. The creation of Dayman and the subsequent rock opera is pure, uncut creative genius that came from Charlie's illiterate, glue-addled mind.
What is going on up here?
I never know, man.
It's the perfect example of the gang accidentally creating something beautiful while trying to do something awful. Fun fact, when they were shooting this episode, I was in film school at the time, so I did some extra work on this show. It was in the scene that was eventually cut, but I got to meet the guys. It was cool. It was before the show was huge.
Well, aren't you special?
And number 4 is Frank's Pretty Woman.
Oh, and a It's tighter than dick skin,
Can
man.
you watch your language, please? Roxy, we're in a classy place with classy clothes for classy people, okay? Don't talk about dick skin.
So Frank trying to turn a crack-addicted prostitute into a high society lady is one of the most perfectly depraved and hilarious plots in the show's history. This episode is a masterclass in dark, uncomfortable comedy. It also probably has the best ending of any episode.
Roxy, God bless you. You were a good whore. You serviced me like no other whore ever did. Not only my crank, but my heart.
At number 3 comes A Very Sunny Christmas.
Oh, whatever. I'm going to burn up the rubber with my Lamborghini. Oh, I got my nice Sergio Giorgini bag.
Damn son of a bitch!
The only holiday special the gang could ever produce. A claymation sequence born from rage, Frank getting sewn into the couch naked, and Charlie discovering his mom's Christmas traditions with a parade of Santas. It's twisted, it's heartwarming in the most disgusting way possible, and it's endlessly rewatchable. It's on my must-watch list each and every Christmas.
I'm not going to be buried in a grave. When I'm dead, just throw me in the trash.
At number 2, The Nightman Cometh.
You know what? You guys have me up to here.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here.
Arguably the most famous episode for a reason. It's a full-blown musical written by a man who can't write, starring people who can't act, all for the purpose of proposing to a woman who wants absolutely nothing to do with him. Every single moment from Troll Toll to Dennis's rapey stage directions is just pure gold. It's the show's magnum opus of accidental genius.
And by the way, I thought the rape scene went really well.
I am here.
And at number 1, the gang gives Frank an intervention.
I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it. Meanwhile, block the wind. I'm gonna roast this bone.
For me, this is the absolute perfect Always Sunny episode. It's the show's entire thesis statement boiled down into 22 minutes of glorious nonsense. The premise is simple. The gang thinks Frank is spiraling out of control, so they hire a professional to stage an intervention. But this is the gang we're talking about. Their narcissism is a force of nature, and the moment the intervention begins, they immediately make it all about themselves. The professional therapist quickly realizes she's not dealing with one troubled man. She's trapped in a room with 5 of the most profoundly broken and selfish people on the planet. The intervention becomes a masterclass in deflection as every attempt to focus on Frank gets derailed by their own deep-seated insanities. It's hilariously awful, culminating in Frank getting the last laugh in the most brilliant way possible. It perfectly encapsulates the series, 5 terrible people trying to fix a problem only to prove that they are and always will be the real problem. Plus you get wine in a can.
Can I just say as a side note, I am loving this canned wine thing.
So there you have it, jabronis, all 17 seasons and a few personal favorite episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia ranked and analyzed.
You did a good job, Booby.
What I think is remarkable about this show is that even its worst seasons are still better than most comedies on television, for that fact that have ever been on television. And the fact that they're still making episodes that can genuinely surprise and delight us after all these years is pretty damn impressive, I have to say. Yeah, the show isn't quite as sharp as it was during that golden season 3 through 7 run, but it's still capable of producing individual episodes that remind you why you fell in love with these terrible people in the first place. When a show can make you laugh, think, and occasionally feel something resembling human emotion while watching 5 sociopaths destroy everything around them, I can't help but think that's something really special. The gang may never learn, may never grow, and may never become better people, but that's exactly why we love them. In a world full of characters who need to arc and develop and learn valuable lessons, there's something refreshing about watching people who are perfectly happy being complete disasters. So, here's to Charlie's illiteracy, Mac's insecurities, Dennis's narcissism, Dee's desperation, and Frank's depravity. May they continue to scheme, fail, and return to Patty's Pub for many seasons to come. Because in the end, we're all just trying to pay the troll toll to get into that boy's soul. Its soul. And somehow these 5 idiots from Philadelphia figured out how to make that journey absolutely hilarious. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you don't like my rankings, well, that's just like your opinion, man. But hey, that's what makes discussing great television so much fun. Let me know your season rankings in the comments. Also, let me know your favorite episodes. If you like this, give the video a like, maybe subscribe. Let me know what television show you'd like to see me rank next. And now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go practice some bird law and work on my ocular pat-down technique. As always, the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone, but what do I know? I'm but a mere jackass. I'll try to do better next time. Wildcard, bitches.
Wildcard, bitches!
What?
I'm just a jackass of all trades. Don't know shit.
to sports, I'll spout.